Good morning, Year 11, and welcome today to your screencast on conflict and tension for the learning objective around the Armistice. So, the very first thing in your conflict and tension topic. So, to understand the Armistice, we have to go back to the First World War, and we have to look at the fact that this man on the left, the Kaiser, the German king, abdicated during the First World War. So he left as leader of Germany because the war was not going well for Germany, and that was in 1918. So as a result of this, as the king abdicated, as the king left, the Weimar government was formed, so a new government in Germany, and Germany became known as Weimar Germany. And the first thing the Weimar government did was they signed the Armistice. So the Armistice then had kind of three terms to it. So it ended the First World War. Germany agreed to pay reparations. So I'll tick them off as we go. So Germany surrendered in the First World War. Get my tick. Yeah. They agreed to pay reparations, like I've just said, and also they agreed to fall back from the Rhineland. So the soldiers fell back from the Rhineland, and that was the terms of the Armistice, which we can see. Which we can see just up there. So the Germans' public reaction then. So the end of the war, the surrender of the war, made the German people extremely angry. It was embarrassing. They'd fought a war for 4 years and they just completely surrendered. So they were angry at the Weimar government for doing that. They were also angry about the agreement to pay reparations because a number wasn't fixed, and they were worried about the economic consequences of that. And finally, they were extremely worried about this, the retreat from the Rhineland. And that was because the German people were worried about that because it was a piece of German land on the border with France, and France were their sworn enemies. So that meant that France would be able to invade Germany really easily if there was no soldiers on the Rhineland. And we can kind of see the impact of this here in this cartoon. We can see here a robber, and we can see here a German soldier. And we know it's a German soldier because we can see him holding the German flag. And this was published in Germany, and it represents the fact that there was two things that were said about the Weimar government. The first, that they were the November criminals, which is why he is dressed as a robber. November because the armistice was signed in November, and criminals because of the agreements. They were not happy with those agreements that were made to surrender the war. They saw it as criminal to the German people that a German government would agree to such things and agree to reparations and agree to falling back from the Rhineland. And the second is this here, the fact that they felt stabbed in the back. They felt betrayed by this. Millions of Germans had died during the First World War. Just to give up like that, reparations they felt betrayed by because of the economic consequences on the German people. So absolutely, the German people felt betrayed. He said they were stabbed in the back by their own government, and that their own government were the November criminals. And another image that kind of links to the armistice, we can see here, this was actually a British cartoon, and what we have is two police officers or two soldiers arresting a man, and the caption at the bottom says giving him rope with a question mark. And the German, so this man here is the German, and we can see from the text it says, "Here I say, stop, you're hurting me." Representing, if we can see, he's wearing the armistice terms. So those soldiers are tying the armistice terms around him, and he's saying, "Listen, you're hurting me. The armistice is hurting Germany." And then he goes on to say, only if I whine enough, I'll be able to get out of this. So it's basically saying that the British thought that Germany were whining too much about the terms of the armistice just to try and get away with basically being punished. Now, one thing before I end is that it's really important that when we talk about the armistice is that we don't get it mixed up with the Treaty of Versailles. The armistice is before the Treaty of Versailles. The armistice is in 1918, the Treaty of Versailles is in 1919, and they have similar terms. So, for example, armistice was the end of the First World War. The Treaty of Versailles was the punishment of Germany because of the First World War. The armistice made Germany, well, it was where Germany agreed to pay reparations. The Treaty of Versailles set reparations at £6.6 billion. The armistice made German troops fall back from the Rhineland. The Treaty of Versailles forbid any troops being put into the Rhineland ever again. It demilitarized it. So that's how they're similar, but we need to know the difference between the armistice and the Treaty of Versailles, as I've just explained then.